Have you ever felt like your silence unsettles people more than your words ever did? When your mind starts seeing through illusions, when you stop playing their games, something strange happens. They don't applaud, they retreat. Because when you begin thinking for yourself, most people don't celebrate it. They feel threatened by it. It's like walking through a foggy forest with a lantern. Everyone else is stumbling, content in their confusion, until your light reveals the path. Suddenly, you're not helpful, you're arrogant. Or think of a lone wolf, silent on the cliffside, watching the pack from a distance. They call him distant, cold, but he's not lost. He simply sees what they refuse to. Because when you stop needing to be understood, when your mind starts operating at a frequency most people can't hear, they don't try to listen. They try to label. Too serious, too intense, too much. But the truth, you're just no longer addicted to noise. So how do you know if you have one of those rare minds, unshaken, misunderstood, and deeply grounded in truth? Stay with me till the end, because the last one, that's the sign even you may have overlooked. Let's begin. Number 1, you don't seek constant validation. Let's talk about a trait that instantly sets you apart from the crowd. You don't need validation to know your worth. While most people spend their days chasing approval, counting likes, waiting for applause, seeking constant reassurance, you've learned to walk without it. You've built your inner compass. You trust your own judgment more than the shifting opinions of the world. And because of that, you confuse people. Not because you're lost, but because you're no longer following the map they've all agreed to obey. Here's the truth. Most people aren't used to someone who moves in silence, who doesn't need recognition to feel secure. When they see someone who isn't broadcasting every win, isn't fishing for compliments, and isn't bending for approval, they assume you're cold or arrogant. But the reality is, you've just outgrown the need to be seen. You're not fueled by attention, you're fueled by clarity. And that's something 99% of people don't understand, because they're still looking outward for answers you've already found within. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes your foundation. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it." In other words, it's not what others say or think that hurts, it's your interpretation of it. And once you master that, once you realize you can remain steady in the storm of opinions, praise and criticism, both lose their power over you. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Emily, used to post every accomplishment on social media, hoping for that rush of comments and approval, and she got it. But every time the likes slowed down or the praise felt thinner, she'd spiral into doubt. Then one day, she went silent. She stopped posting her wins, stopped explaining her moves. She kept working, kept growing, but no one saw it. And at first, it felt lonely. But then something shifted. She realized she felt more peaceful than she had in years. The noise was gone. And without it, she discovered something powerful. She no longer needed applause to feel proud. So how do you live without validation in a world built on it? First, learn to celebrate your wins quietly. You don't need an audience to know you're making progress. Second, filter feedback. Not all opinions are equal. Listen only to those who've earned your trust. And third, remember this: walking your path without approval is strength, not isolation. At the end of the day, those who don't understand your silence were never meant to hear your voice. When you stop needing validation, you don't just free yourself from other people's opinions, you free yourself from your own doubts. And that kind of mind, That's rare. That's powerful. That's yours. Number 2, you focus on what you can control. Let's talk about a mindset that instantly separates you from the majority, someone who chooses to focus only on what's within their control. This is the person who refuses to waste time pointing fingers, who doesn't spiral into panic over things they can't change. Instead of reacting emotionally to every external event, they pause, they observe, they respond only when it serves them. And this calm, grounded approach, it confuses people, especially those who thrive on chaos and blame. They can't understand how you stay centered when things go wrong. They think you're detached or indifferent. But what they don't see is the discipline behind that calm. Here's the truth. When you stop stressing about things outside your control, you take your power back. Most people burn out not because of what happens to them, but because they try to control everything that happens. They want guarantees. They want everyone to act a certain way. And when that doesn't happen, they collapse. But you've learned that the only real control you have is over your own thoughts, your own choices, your own response. That makes you rare. That makes you powerful. Because no matter how wild the storm gets, you know your anchor is internal, not external. This is what Stoicism teaches. The Stoics remind us that peace is not found in changing the world. It's found in changing how we meet the world. Epictetus said it perfectly. Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. That's not passivity. That's wisdom. It's knowing the difference between what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Most people haven't figured that out. That's why they think your calm is strange or even fake. But it's not. It's earned. Let me tell you about someone. His name is Brian. Brian worked in a company where everyone panicked when deadlines shifted, when clients got upset, when things didn't go as planned. But Brian, he never snapped, never blamed. He focused on solutions. When others complained about the workload, he quietly adjusted his schedule. When the office politics flared up, he stayed out of it. Some people mocked him for being too chill. But guess what? He got promoted before all of them, not because he was flashy, but because he was unshakable. So if people don't understand your peace, let them be confused. Your job isn't to explain it. Your job is to live it. And the more you focus on what's in your hands, the more untouchable you become. That's not arrogance, that's Stoic strength. Number 3, you see through emotional manipulation. Let's talk about one of the clearest signs of a strong, uncommon mind. Someone who sees through emotional manipulation. This is the person who doesn't fall for guilt trips, who doesn't get pulled into dramatic spirals, who remains calm when others try to provoke. Not because they're cold or heartless, but because they've learned to recognize emotional games from miles away. When someone tries to gaslight them, they don't panic, they observe. When someone tries to guilt them into saying yes, they don't explain, they stand firm. And this makes people who thrive on control extremely uncomfortable. Here's the truth. People who manipulate others emotionally often count on confusion. They use guilt, exaggeration, and fear to bend reality. But you've built clarity. You've trained your mind to separate feelings from facts, pressure from principle. Your calm in the face of chaos isn't indifference, it's discipline. And to someone who relies on chaos to maintain control, that kind of emotional sovereignty is threatening. They don't know what to do with someone who doesn't react the way they expected. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes a quiet weapon. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." You don't waste energy defending yourself to manipulators. You don't try to prove your worth to people who twist your words. Instead, you live your truth, with calm, with focus, with strength. That's silent clarity. It dismantles manipulation without a single argument. Let me tell you a story. A woman I know, let's call her Rachel, was in a relationship with someone who constantly guilted her into things. If she needed space, he'd say she was cold. If she disagreed, he'd accuse her of being too sensitive or overreacting. At first, she questioned herself, but eventually she stopped explaining. She started noticing the pattern, and when the next guilt trip came, she simply paused, looked at him, and said nothing. Her silence spoke volumes. She stopped playing the role he'd cast her in, and the manipulation lost its power. That day, Rachel learned that you don't have to argue with emotional games. You just have to see them clearly and not participate. So how do you handle emotional manipulation like someone with a rare mind? First, stop reacting. Start observing. Second, hold your boundary without drama. And third, know this: people who respect you won't play games to control you. At the end of the day, emotional manipulators crave power over your mind. But when you've trained yourself to stay centered, to see through the illusion, they lose access to that power. And that's exactly what makes your mind so rare. If you've watched the video this far, don't forget to leave a comment with a "thank God" and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support. Number 4, you question everything, even yourself. Let's talk about one of the rarest and most misunderstood strengths, a mind that questions everything, including itself. This isn't about doubting for the sake of doubt. It's about having the courage to ask the uncomfortable questions. Why do I believe this? Where did this assumption come from? Am I reacting from truth or from habit? While most people are busy defending their beliefs, you're busy dissecting yours. That kind of self-inquiry unsettles people, because when you question your own thinking, it shines a light on the thoughts they've never dared to examine. Here's the truth. People who challenge themselves mentally are often mistaken for being indecisive or overly analytical. But it's the opposite. You're not uncertain, you're thorough. You don't just absorb opinions, you turn them over in your mind, test them against your values, and discard what doesn't align. You don't trust your impulses blindly. You investigate them. You reflect before you react. That level of inner discipline. It's not common, and because it's uncommon, it's often misunderstood. This is what Stoic wisdom calls uprightness. Marcus Aurelius said, "A man should be upright, not kept upright." Meaning, your integrity shouldn't be imposed by rules. It should come from within. That's exactly what you practice. You hold yourself accountable even when no one is watching. You question your motives when things go wrong. You ask, what part did I play in this? What can I learn here? That's a level of ownership that most people avoid, because it's easier to blame, easier to point outward than inward. But you're not looking for comfort. You're looking for clarity, and clarity often comes through challenge. Let me tell you about someone. Let's call her Madison. She grew up being told that anger was weakness, that emotions should be buried, not faced. For years, she repeated that pattern, until one day, during an argument, she stopped mid-sentence. Not because she lost the argument, but because something inside her shifted. She didn't just react, she paused. Later that night, she sat down and asked herself, Why did I feel the need to win that exchange? What am I really defending? And from that day forward, she started rewiring her responses, not based on what she was taught, but based on what she truly believed. It changed everything, not overnight, but consistently. So if people find your introspection strange, let them. The world praises outward strength, loud voices, strong opinions, unwavering certainty. But Stoic wisdom reminds us that the deepest strength lies in turning inward, in questioning, refining, evolving, not once, but every day. Because the person who dares to challenge themselves is already miles ahead of the one who never looks within. Number 5. You choose peace over revenge. Let's talk about something that most people misunderstand. What it really means to choose peace over revenge. When someone wrongs you, the world expects a reaction. They expect fire for fire, insult for insult. You're supposed to retaliate, to match their energy, to show them they can't get away with it. But you don't. You don't take the bait. You don't fight fire with fire. You let go. You detach, step back, and move on without spectacle. And because of that, because you don't strike back, people assume you're soft. They mistake your calm for weakness. But they have it all wrong. Here's the truth. Choosing peace is not passive, it's power. It means you have mastery over yourself, your impulses, your anger, your pride. When you don't let someone's behavior drag you down to their level, you're not backing down. You're rising above. You're saying, I don't need to destroy you to reclaim my peace. That's not weakness, it's strength. Revenge is easy. It's emotional, immediate, and intoxicating. But peace? That takes control. That takes vision. That takes a mind that sees the bigger picture. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In other words, don't become the very thing that hurt you. Don't let someone else's behavior dictate your character. When you seek revenge, you're still chained to them. You're letting their actions continue to shape your decisions. But when you walk away, calm, detached, untouched, you cut the chain. You free yourself. Let me tell you about someone. Let's call him Derek. He was betrayed by a close friend who took credit for his work and left him to deal with the fallout. Everyone expected Derek to retaliate, to expose him, humiliate him, ruin his name. But Derek didn't say a word. He kept his head down, continued his work, and rose even higher. Months later, the truth surfaced on its own. His friend's reputation crumbled, not because Derek destroyed him, but because he destroyed himself. And Derek? He walked away with his peace and his dignity intact. That's the kind of power most people never understand, because they're too focused on winning petty wars to recognize when they've already won the real battle, mastery over self. So if you choose peace over revenge, don't let the world make you feel small for it. You're not weak, you're wise. You're not passive, you're powerful. You've simply learned that peace is not the absence of justice, it's the presence of strength. And sometimes the most devastating response is no response at all. Because nothing unnerves a person more than realizing they can't shake you, that you won't stoop, that you've already moved on. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 6. You stay calm in chaos. Let's talk about something most people misinterpret. How powerful it is to stay calm when everything around you is falling apart. In a world where chaos is contagious, calm is rare. People expect you to panic when things go wrong, to shout when you're disrespected, to lose your grip when pressure builds. But you don't. You stay anchored, you breathe, you observe before you act, and that throws people off. especially those who are used to pulling emotional strings. Here's the truth. Calm isn't the absence of emotion. It's the ability to hold steady in the storm. While others get swept away by anger or fear, you hold your ground. You know that most of what people react to isn't reality. It's their imagination, their assumptions, their spiraling thoughts. That's why Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Because it's not the situation, it's how we frame it. You've trained your mind not to be a slave to the noise. This confuses people, because emotional volatility is common. People expect drama. They thrive on it. They look for buttons to push. And when you don't respond the way they expect, it's unsettling. Your silence makes them louder. Your stillness feels like resistance. They don't know how to handle someone who can't be provoked. That kind of composure, it's a threat to their control. Let me tell you about someone. Let's call her Emily. She worked in a high-stress environment where ego ruled every room. One day, during a tense meeting, her colleague tried to corner her with passive-aggressive comments in front of everyone. The room tensed. Everyone braced for a response. But Emily didn't react. She calmly looked at her notes, waited for him to finish, and then responded with nothing but facts, measured, composed, unshaken. The energy in the room shifted. Her calm exposed his chaos. And suddenly, he didn't look powerful. He looked desperate. Emily didn't win that moment by raising her voice. She won it by never letting him control hers. That's the power of calm. It doesn't demand attention, but it commands respect. It doesn't need to dominate a room. It silently shapes it. And while most people are busy reacting, you're busy choosing. Choosing when to speak, when to move, when to let go. That's Stoic discipline in motion. Not freezing your feelings, but mastering your response. So the next time someone calls your calm cold, remember, they just don't understand it. Because they haven't felt what it's like to face chaos and not flinch. But you have, and that makes your silence louder than their screams. Number 7, you don't need to be understood. Let's talk about one of the most misunderstood forms of strength, not needing to be understood. Most people spend their lives trying to explain themselves, prove their worth, or convince others that their path makes sense. They crave validation. They fear being misjudged. But you've let go of that need. You don't chase understanding. You don't beg people to get you. You just live. You move in quiet alignment with your values, even when no one claps. And that kind of inner direction, it confuses people who've built their entire identity on being seen. Here's the truth. When you no longer need to be understood, you're finally free. You're no longer controlled by public opinion or personal approval. You do what's right, not what's popular. You say what's true, not what's convenient. As Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That's what guides you, not applause, not acceptance, not the illusion of agreement. And that's exactly what makes people uneasy. Because when someone doesn't need validation, they become unpredictable. They can't be manipulated by praise or pressure. They don't flinch when misunderstood, because they never needed to be understood in the first place. That's real power. And it's why your silence sometimes speaks louder than their arguments. Let me tell you about someone. Let's call him Jacob. Jacob left a high-paying job to work on something he believed in, something quiet, slow, and deeply meaningful to him. His friends didn't get it. His family thought he was wasting potential. People whispered, judged, speculated. But Jacob didn't flinch. He didn't waste time explaining or defending. He just kept working. Years later, his quiet project changed lives. Not because he marketed it well, not because people suddenly started clapping, but because it was true. And the people who once called him foolish now call him wise, not because he changed, but because their vision finally caught up to his. That's the irony. The more you live by your truth, the more others resist you. At first, but over time, truth proves itself, quietly, patiently, without needing a single word of justification. So if you're walking a path most don't understand, keep walking. Don't slow down for applause. Don't lower your truth to be relatable. Don't explain the fire in your soul to people still afraid of the spark. Just live it, own it, and let your life speak for itself. Because some minds were never meant to be understood. They were meant to be remembered. If you believe this video can help others, give it a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show it to more people. And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content coming your way. Share your thoughts in the comments. I will definitely reply.